Oh,
Yep.
so yeah. Thank you, Lois,
I
for
am
this.
so
Yeah,
I am so happy to have you aboard with us. And I know that you're going to be packed with a lot of good, solid information. So I'm going to let you take the floor right now and just thank you so much.
absolutely.
Claire,
No, thank you.
introduce yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. So thank you, Liz, for having me. I am a, my name is Claire. I'm a speech language pathologist, a board certified speech language pathologist, meaning that I had to go through 6 years of schooling and education just to get my credentials. And one thing that is crucial about speech language pathology is that we support and advocate and help individuals who stutter or have any other kind of fluency predicament in their life. So I'm going to actually go ahead and share my presentation here. Let's get it started. So let me know if you can see that and I'll hit present.
Okay. So right now, yeah, now we can see. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So, really, what I would like to focus on is mindfulness and how that's incorporated into stuttering therapy. So, I have it labeled as mindfulness and stuttering therapy, awareness, acceptance, and agency. So, that's really, really a big key, right? Especially, I'd say, the agency part of it. I think when I've experienced working with individuals who stutter, one thing I hear a lot is that I get this feedback that many adults who have stuttered in their life don't often get the support and the help they need till much later sometimes. And I like to emphasize agency because we at some point need to take it upon ourselves to find that support and to accept that we need it and to become aware of what level of support is required. And I just like to say it doesn't always need to be from a speech therapist, although we're always happy to support and help. It can always come from a mental health counselor, a life coach, a mentor figure who is certified and trained to help individuals and even children as well. So let's go forward. I'll talk a little bit about myself. Again, as I mentioned, I'm a speech therapist, speech language pathologist also, but speech therapist for short. And I have this passion for person centered therapy. And I'm also a yoga teacher as my background. I've been a yoga teacher longer than I have been a speech therapist. So I come from this strong background of mindfulness and meditation and breath work to support not just individuals who stutter, all my clients. I use it in every single diagnosis that I work with. So, big part of that is grounding, breath awareness, and also using the therapeutic tools that I've learned to help individuals reduce that anxiety and trust themselves and communicate with much more ease. Additionally, I'm also a member of CourseFan, which is a corporate speech language pathologist networking group. So it is a group of SLPs, speech language pathologists, who support individuals with professional skills. And just as a little disclosure, this is just usual housekeeping. I am supporting this presentation for educational and advocacy purposes. While I am licensed SLP and yoga instructor, this is not this is not intended to serve as medical, therapeutic, or clinical advice, but rather to encourage and help you have the tools to consult with your own healthcare providers for personalized care. And I have no financial relationships to disclose. I'm not receiving any compensation, and I'm not promoting any products or services, and I'm not affiliated with anything being promoted here. So let's go forward. So, my goal for everyone watching this, whether it be this morning, this evening, or in the future, is to help you emotionally, physically, and communicatively express yourself and explore in a safe, non-judgmental space that there's really nothing you need to fix to become fluent, but rather focus on that awareness and different tools to cultivate that compassion with yourself, not just yourself day to day, but yourself when you're in that role of being perceived as a communicator, as a leader, as a mentor. And I'm sure we experience these different roles day to day, right? We're parents, some of us, siblings, grandparents, children, right? So how can you view yourself without judging and just observing? And that is a big, important key component of mindfulness. I have this quote at the bottom saying there's no fixing, no pressure, but rather just exploring helpful tools that will support connection and confidence. Before I go forward, I just want to gauge everyone. You can show me with your hands, you can unmute. Is there anyone here who has a steady mindfulness practice already? And if so, what might that be? Maybe yoga, maybe reading, maybe meditation. Great.
I have just learned it a little bit from YouTube videos.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that's a great place to start too. I remember in the beginning of my yoga and mindfulness journey, YouTube was the best place to begin. Coming from a younger generation, I had that resource and it was very accessible to me. So it's a great place to begin.
Michael
Anyone?
O'Shea started studying all of those about 30 years ago. So I learned, actually heard mentors to teach me privately. So I needed it to focus just on my stuttering. So I found it very, very helpful. And I'm like you now, I work with the stuttering community. I don't charge for my experience or for anything else. So just focusing on the individual and that quote that you have at the end. There's no fixing, no pressure, just exploring helpful tools that support connection and confidence. That should be in every stuttering manual. Michael O'Shea.
Thank you, Michael. I agree. I have found that, and I just want to speak on this a little bit. I found that many individuals who stutter, they have a bad experience with speech therapy, perhaps from childhood, perhaps back in before I received my license, before I was trained. There were different schools of thought, different modalities that were being used that were focused on a high pressure environment. At least that's what I've been told and with the feedback I've received. And there is a new wave approaching that doesn't focus on fixing, that doesn't focus on severe clinical diagnosis and treatment. It's very no pressure and very patient supported. So that is the wave that's coming into the speech language pathology world. I wish more providers, previous providers or senior providers were able to support that ideology. But of course, that is where we have this diversity in our field. We need to continue advocating and we need to continue hearing the voices of individuals who stutter so that those therapists who may not be as knowledgeable on the current literature can realize where they are falling behind. So for the next few moments, I'd like us to do a mindfulness practice. So this is what we'll start with. We'll just start with bringing our shoulders up to our ears. And this is just to get us in the mindset, into the habit, and explore. So you can bring your shoulders up to your ears. I'm just going to stop the share so the screen isn't so bright. So squeeze them up, take a deep inhale. And as you exhale, let the shoulders drop. You can let out a sigh, any noise that you need, and we'll do that 2 more times. Taking in that deep inhale, feel your belly rise, bring the shoulders up to the ears, hold for 3, maybe close your eyes, 2, squeeze everything, 1, and let it go on the exhale. Good. So we'll do that one last time with the shoulder. Raise, go ahead, lift it up to the ears, take a deep, deep inhale. Breathing everything in, all that tension at once, and on the exhale, let it all go and relax. Good. You can just roll your shoulders slowly forward, roll them back. You can also alternate your shoulders one at a time, like you're swimming or shrugging. And you can just let them fall back into a neutral place. This time we're going to breathe out the tension surrounding our vocal folds, surrounding the muscles of the neck, and even the muscles of the jaw. So as you sit, feeling the crown of your head rise up towards your ceiling, relaxed, easing out all the tension surrounding your body. Take in another deep inhale. And this time as you exhale, let out a breathy. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear me because Zoom picks up on audio in an interesting way. But on that next exhale, it's just an ah sound with a breathy H. So breathe in. And let it out. And as you do it this last time, pay attention to how that feels in your body. Maybe you become aware of the core, right inside that, your diaphragm, maybe the pelvic floor muscles as they release tension, the legs, the shins, the ankles, and the feet. If you'd like, you can do that one last time, breathing in. Let out that Begin to slowly let the eyes relax. Maybe they're becoming heavier and heavier as we focus on the present moment, the awareness we're building surrounding our muscles. You may begin to scan from the head down to the toes, perhaps letting your tongue drop down to the floor of your mouth, letting the jaw pull down with the force of gravity. With every inhale and with every exhale, noticing what releases, maybe even noticing what's tensing. And if you notice those sensations, do as little as possible at this moment to control them. Do as much as possible to observe. Perhaps you think of a moment or a thought in your mind as it drifts, and that's perfectly fine. You'll just gently guide yourself back to your next breath, letting each breath ground you in this moment. Perhaps you again take note of what's happening right now. Sensations, sounds, feelings. and the distractions too. Perhaps you notice the tension rising in the body again. Instead of pushing anything away, you acknowledge. You may say to yourself, this is what's present right now. The same sense of presence and awareness. This is how we begin to stay anchored while speaking, listening, or simply just being. Slowly begin to reawaken, turn to the room. You might start to wiggle your toes or your fingers. You can roll your shoulders again if you'd like, or stretch or blink your eyes open to reconnect with the space around you. And as you reawaken with eyes open, making sure not to open them too quickly as we might regain that tension we've just released. As we remain grounded and awake and ready to move forward. And I'll give everyone the last few seconds they need to reawaken, open their eyes. If anyone would like to share or comment on what they noticed or what they observed or felt, you can feel free to unmute or share that within the chat.
I have noticed extreme relaxation in various parts of my body and speech muscles.
Sahil, that's what it should do. It should relax and allow you to slow down, to stay present and aware. Is anyone else interested in sharing their thoughts or comments? Vesna?
Yes, first of all, I'm sorry I was late, and this is what was also going on through my body. You know, I hate being late, and it just raises up a tension in me. And so when this exercise started, I noticed that there was a lot of tension in my body, in my stomach, and in my legs. It was very heavy. And as we were going along and breathing, I could release that tension. But when you said something like maybe the tension is coming back, I felt it again in my stomach and in my legs. So, but to the end, I could feel the relaxation, and this is also something that I do. I practice body-oriented psychotherapy, so this is something that I do with my clients as well. So I like it very much. So, yeah, it was nice.
I'm glad you were aware of when that tension started to form again. I'm sure instead of fighting it, you were just, okay, you were just saying to yourself, I'm aware and this is happening. Yeah,
Yes, yes, that's
wonderful.
right.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I would be very similar to Vesna. I apologize for being late. I hate being late for anything, but it's just unfortunately a neighbor crossed my path when I was coming in, so I had to speak to him. Yeah, I felt everything on the breath, allowing myself to let tension, anxiety, anything that was interfering with the relaxation, just breathe it out of my body. Just breathe it out. And it really, really works. You know, I've been practicing that for a long time, but just to say it really works. Michael O'Shea.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget temporarily what it's like for that tension to release. I even find myself having difficulty staying consistent with my practice. But once something reminds me that I should, once I pay attention to anything in my environment, right? Maybe I hear on the radio or in a song the words relax. I immediately try to correlate that subconsciously over time, of course, with my mindfulness practice. When I hear something reminding me of it, I know maybe I should relax. And it takes time to build. And that's what we'll talk about next is how or what the difference is between, say, the mindfulness we build through practice and the mindfulness we build while we're practicing it. So here we go. That idea of the mindfulness we build outside of our practice is referred to as trait mindfulness. And here I've connected, right, what it is to have that or how this tool serves us and how it serves individuals who also stutter. So here it says mindfulness is the conscious awareness of the present moment. And of course, that practice is when an individual sets out a specific time, place, and plan to engage in that non-judgmental observation. For me, it started with meditation and yoga. Some people consider reading a book as mindfulness. Some people consider listening to music or even just resting your eyes with anything on in the background. Really, mindfulness is such a broad tool and almost an umbrella term for different methods of practice. So maybe you're a musician, maybe you're an artist, wherever you're just in that present state of awareness, that flow, you can even consider that mindfulness. So if the meditation practice was not your thing, and for some it's not, there's so many more modalities you can explore from. And research has suggested that individuals who have less judgment towards their inner experience were less likely to avoid difficult speaking situations. So I'm not sure if anyone would like to share maybe a time where they utilize that mindfulness technique or utilized their awareness to show up or to have more power in their speaking situations or speaking opportunities, if anyone would like to share.
Can I?
Sure.
For example, when I get mad at my kids, these are very, very challenging situations. So I try really hard to stay connected to myself and not to burst out. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience.
Definitely.
Michael O'Shea, my experience working with people of verbal differences is it totally depends on the trauma that each individual has experienced in their past historical verbal lives. If the trauma is really, really red hot, it's hard to break down that wall between being afraid and the fear. And which comes first? Is it being afraid or is it the fear? And that depends on each individual when you ask them that question as well. Are you afraid or is it fear? People will answer that question very, very differently in my experience. Michael O'Shea.
I believe you wanted to share.
Yes, I actually find that right before a very important presentation, if you just let yourself relax in a moment of mindfulness and just let yourself feel calm and just sit and be aware, just like the exercise that we in engaged in was a perfect thing that if you do that right before something that is very in important, it helps you to be more powerful when you do actually have to do your speech. So that's what I found.
Definitely. And I think it helps us from avoiding certain phrases or certain language that we otherwise wouldn't have normally engaged in, or methods of starting conversations that we normally wouldn't have engaged in. And again, as I love how Michael mentioned the level of trauma, right? The level of experience that certain individuals have in their past that, shows where they show up in that avoidance. So sometimes, right, the certain situation, the level of the fear or the trauma that you've experienced can affect it very, very, very powerfully. And again, other traits that may show up, right? This repetitive negative thinking, perhaps that idea that, well, I'm going to present this situation, present this conversation, talk to that person, and it's going to occur anyways, the stutter or the negative thoughts and the whole gist of it. Well, maybe if using that mindfulness helps you relax, helps you release that tension, right? Maybe you can also release then the judgment and a little bit of those thoughts, even if they show up, right? Just noticing them before engaging in that stressful situation. And again, this is what I would like to talk about too, is the speech therapist's role and the client's role in reframing these goals. As I mentioned before we started the mindfulness practice, and maybe some of us weren't here, so I'll just reiterate that speech therapy used to focus a lot on fixing clients, on saying there's something wrong here. Whereas now it's not that way anymore. It shouldn't be that way anymore. It should be more than that. It should focus on the individual, your experiences, and how that individual describes them, and hopefully attaining the goal of approaching them with more kindness. And I've quoted a researcher from an article who methods and information I've been inspired by, and I'll actually share that with everyone if you're interested. It was a study on mindfulness and its approach for individuals who stutter before engaging in speech therapy. So our goals then, and your goals, and this is also so important for advocacy too, right? Because again, maybe one day somebody sets out to see a speech therapist. Maybe they saw one in the past and it just didn't work out because that therapist was so focused on fixing instead of listening. So, of course, Let them know what you observe is happening in your body. And if they're not asking you these questions, maybe you prompt them to, you ask them, what should I be feeling? So noticing is a big, big step. 2, describing, right? Building the language around the experience. When I work with pediatric clients, I often show them these little cue cards of emotions and ask them, what's going on with your behavior in this moment. So I'll show up a picture and say, they feel happy. They'll point and tell me I feel happy, I feel sad, etc. But as adults, we have to also come up with these cue cards ourselves too, right? What happens in that moment before you step up to speak and present? What can you identify? Where is the tension coming from? For some, it's in their shoulders. For some, it's in their hips. Maybe your gut starts to tell you and churn, right? There are all different ways our body communicates with us. And also the thoughts. Some people immediately go into a flashback of a time where their expectations did not match what occurred, whether that was negative or a positive sensation for that individual, or a neutral one, of course, too. And then kindness, practicing non-judgment, as we've mentioned so many times. Respond to the experience like you would to a close friend, with understanding and not criticism. So it's so easy, I think, to over-intellectualize what's happening too, and instead maybe we need to listen, right? Not just to our body, but to the thoughts. If the thoughts are not helping us, if they're not productive, right? If they're not kind, how can we reframe it? And how can speech therapy also help reframe that too? For some, it's just by simply saying to the therapist, hey, this is how I'm feeling today, or I have this event coming up. How can we work on reframing it? So something I like to do before my sessions, I always do a check-in asking, what came up before the week? What would you like to work on? What words, what target, this and that should we focus on for the next session, for this session, for the month, etc. So this is just a great way to think about how can a professional help me, and how can I use the therapist's or professional's expertise to tailor it to my needs. So again, I like to, go on to this trail of advocacy, right? What it means for you to find that therapist who understands your experience of stuttering is more than just your speech. To support with goals like creating confidence, presence, and self-acceptance, and self-advocacy too. To provide resources, maybe finding similar public speakers who are advocating with their stutter. And there are so many that exist with social media. It's so accessible now to find individuals with similar stories and backgrounds to relate to. And also, mindfulness and breath work and emotional awareness in speech therapy is incredibly important. So if for some reason the counseling that you're receiving is not as receptive as you thought it would be, perhaps it's time to let that individual, that professional know that, what they're doing is perhaps not in flow or in design with what you need. And they should also respect your autonomy and your values and your goals, right? Feeling comfortable to say no, right? Feeling comfortable to tell them, I don't want this, I don't want that. And it can be so difficult at times to do so, but it's important. So again, to recap, it is not about fixing you. It is to feel more comfortable in your voice, your agency, to reduce the emotional weight of speaking, and to communicate with more ease, whatever that looks like for you. So you should be listened to, that it is not just about stuttering. It is so much more. And I had a slide here where we will practice for the next 5 minutes a little stuttering therapy, or rather what's called voluntary stuttering practice. And I know we have a little bit of time, but I just want to get a quick raise of hands. Has anyone ever done forced stutter before? Okay, Christine. No, okay. Got it. Okay. Michael, you have? Okay. So pretty much you would take in, and we can do this without mics on or off, depending on how you feel. You would start with a deep breath in and out, feeling that little sense of mindfulness, that little sense of body awareness, choosing a simple word or phrase. So, for example, you could do a greeting. You could say, I like coffee, whichever the target stimuli is for you, the target sound. And then inserting that gentle repetition or block. So forcefully and intentionally almost creating that stutter to feel more in control psychologically of it. So if everyone would like to practice, feel free. Or if someone would like to give an example and share, feel free.
Michael O'Shea, magnificent.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael.
My name is Lois. My name is Lois.
My name is Suhail.
I like coffee.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so you see how psychologically it gives this idea, the sense of control, the sense of agency over your sentence, over your thoughts in communicating them. And the idea here is that you feel like you're putting your own thoughts first in that practice. So along with the mindfulness, along with the therapy, when they come together, it creates this whole sense of intention behind your words, behind your thoughts, and your method of communicating. So again, that was just notice what comes up. And I think we did that a little bit, but did anybody want to provide a little feedback about what came up for you during that practice?
Yes, though I wanted to do voluntary stuttering, and I tried to do voluntary, but after first it became real. It was no more voluntary. Otherwise, I could have said, my name is Suhail without stuttering. But as you suggested that I should do it on voluntary basis, and I tried it on voluntary basis, but after first it then was genuinely, I was stuttering. This is my experience just now.
Interesting. No, thank you for sharing.
Michael O'Shea brought me back to 40 years ago. I'll be 70 next month, so I was 30 years old. And when I used to say my name and have a severe block, it'd just be and so on. The whole vocal system was in massive tension, and I couldn't. And it was an SLP who introduced me to just the first sound, Michael, just the first sound. Mum, 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 mum. Now, it was in the early days of voluntary sliding or voluntary stuttering or discipline disfluency, whatever you want to call it. It was in the early days, but the message was missed. They didn't understand where the principle was going to lead to. I thought that the principal was going to lead to me being saying Michael for the rest of my life. If they had showed me where the outcome was, that it would lead to Michael, it would have been a different experience. Michael O'Shea.
Like to share?
Yes, I noticed that I was immediately planning what I would say so as I didn't stammer and well, and really that isn't what the voluntary stammering is about. It's actually well, really getting you more comfortable with your stammer.
Used to it and exposed to it.
Yes.
So you don't avoid those public speaking opportunities where if it does occur and it does feel uncontrollable, that you do take back that control.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Thank you everyone for sharing. All right. So again, it builds that desensitization, that reduced fear of stuttering in real moments, that self-acceptance that it is okay to stutter, and control through choice, that you're deciding when and how to stutter, not the fear of it. So just to recap what we explored today, that mindfulness isn't always just about controlling it, it's about changing your relationship with it too, that stutter. And then that trait mindfulness, especially the non-judging and the awareness, may ease that emotional impact, that you don't have to eliminate the stutter, but feel empowered, present, and confident, and that it can support more than just fluency, but help you feel more at ease in your voice. So some tools I hope we can all take with us today. That guided mindfulness for grounding and presence is one. That voluntary stuttering to face fear with control. That emotional labeling to increase self-awareness. And the reframed mindset that you are not your stutter. That stuttering is only one part of communication and not the whole story, but what matters most is how you show up for yourself. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Louis, for giving me this opportunity to speak about this today. And if you'd always like those resources or would like to reach out, feel free. This is my information below. I'll also leave that research article, or I'll send it here in the chat. Let's see if I can do that. Or if not, I can always send it out to the group. And that way you will have it there with you. So thank you again. And that concludes my presentation here.
We just want to thank you so graciously. And we want to actually open it up for questions, because since this is a taped session, we want to ask questions that everybody in the group would like to know from a speech therapist. Say, for instance, if I'm in a high pressured situation, say a job interview, what would be some advice that you might say to somebody who is struggling with stuttering?
Yeah, so in a job interview setting, again, I would recommend taking that time beforehand, maybe 5 to 10 minutes if you're commuting by train, if you're commuting by car, perhaps you stay in the setting of your car, someplace familiar and comfortable, just doing those mindfulness techniques, maybe 5 minutes. After that, perhaps you premeditate and pre-prepare those questions that you're expecting to receive and your responses, and recording, practicing, making sure that you are in that good headspace to not judge yourself beforehand, telling and creating affirmations in your mind not to rush, to be genuine, to be yourself before that interview. And once you're in there, right, visualizing your success, no matter whether you start to stutter, no matter whether you don't stutter, right? And I especially think what happens sometimes is individuals tend to over apologize. But maybe instead of apologizing to anybody, perhaps it's then that test of, well, if I need to overly apologize, is this where I would like to be too? If that resonates with anybody.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Would anybody? Yes.
Today, I was in a situation and I was not under pressure at all because there was no stress. Rather, I think, over enthusiastic and overconfident. And at that particular moment, I came across a sudden and unexpected block. Though I managed to speak whatever I wanted to speak, but after that, I tried to analyze it, that why it happened and what happened to me, because the situation was not stressful at all. It was very easy situation. And my answer was that I was out of breath, and when I started speaking, there was no proper, or sufficient air in my lungs or vocal cords, whatever you may call it. And that caused this, problem. So if I relate it to today's lecture, now what answer I can find is that at that moment I missed mindfulness. Had I been concentrated on the present moment, then I would have normalized my breath before speaking, and perhaps I would have not faced the problem what I faced. And now I ask you, what are your comments about it?
I think my first comment would be, did you feel that the message you had for that individual, did you feel that even though you experienced that block, did they reciprocate and understand you in that situation?
No, I don't think so that he was aware of it, and he responded me in normal way as we meet otherwise, because he did not come to know that I had faced a block, or I was having some problem. I mean, a tension in my body. I managed whatever I wanted to say, but for that, I had to put in a lot of effort, which the other guy did not recognize.
Well, mindfulness can be a helpful tool to present beforehand and, bring that awareness in. And maybe it possibly could have helped and had a different outcome. But it sounds like to me in the summary of this situation in this conversation, you expressed what you had to express, and the receiver on the other end was able to infer it, was able to process it despite what had occurred. And in my professional opinion, I would say that conversation, although maybe you felt it didn't go as well, or it didn't go as well because of the block, as long as that receiver understood, showed compassion for you in that moment, or didn't notice it at all, would you agree that maybe that was a successful outcome even with the block?
Okay, okay, but but I mean, my point is that I had to do a lot of struggle to communicate myself at that particular moment, and after that, I was okay.
Michael O'Shea, it may help you, Sohail. About 10 years ago, I came up with, and when I went to address the question that Claire is answering, I did not go to the professional speech community. I went in search of people who had gone through, who had walked the walk with their own businesses, doing presentations, taking on stuff that they wouldn't even have dreamt that they were capable of doing. And they really pushed themselves. But what I learned about 10 years ago was how to present myself at interviews, or if I'm doing a presentation, how to present myself, because your first sentences and how you present yourself is really going to lay the groundwork for how you will perform. And it's as simple as this. Michael O'Shea, I am a person of verbal difference. I stutter. I'm not fixed, or I'm not cured. But there is a lot of knowledge I've learned, and there is a lot I have applied. And if I do have a blip in a word today, don't worry. Nobody is going to die. I will guarantee you I will not stutter throughout that. Now, I have a very important engagement coming up on Wednesday. There's going to be over 150 people there. And it's a presentation from the president of our country to an organization that I co-founded. And they're giving us an award for helping and supporting people of verbal differences. It's not verbal difference of just stuttering, it's verbal differences, ADHD, everything that goes into having people nervous with their communication. And that's exactly how I will address that audience. Michael O'Shea, Mr. President, I am a person of verbal difference. Bang. Everybody in the room knows the score. So if there is a blip, or if there is something going on, they will have absolutely no attention or pay any attention to it. They may be looking for it. And that's what I'm hoping. They may be looking for the blip, but they won't get it. But now, again, that has come from 10 years of intense practice. I'm not saying that it was easy at the start. It wasn't. It took me about 6 months of consistency to really groove that and make it an automatic habit. But it really, really works. And I've done it with probably 300 or 400 people, and it has worked for them. Even chief executives of companies who are busy, and they don't listen, and they think because but they made so many mistakes, were creating so much tension, so much anxiety. And I'd just like to ask clear question. My opinion of stuttering is that fear is the most overused word in the stuttering community, that we don't understand the impact that fear has and everything related back to fear. But what is our greatest fear? A person of verbal difference, what is their greatest fear? Their greatest fear is being exposed as a person of difference. Now, we have been socialized to look for that judgment ever since we started school. When was the first time that a person of verbal difference felt different? When was the first time that they felt isolated? And they will all go back to school. They could be 60, they could be 70. And the question is, when did you first feel that you were different? Every one of them will go back to school. And I learned that the components, I had to look after the components of that word and break it down. And the components for me are verbal panic, verbal chaos in a split second, verbal confusion. So those three things come bang, bang, bang. Verbal stress. You're showing it in your body, your listener picks up on it, you pick up on your listener picking up on it. And of course, the big three then, anticipatory anxiety. You don't need to stutter to stutter. You don't need to speak to stutter. And I'll give you an example of that. When my first son was born, 15 minutes after he took his first breath, I was worried about how I was going to speak on the day of his wedding. Anticipatory anxiety. And I carry that with me for a long, long time. Then you're having the moment anxiety when we block or somebody cuts across us or something like that. That's in the moment anxiety. And then we have the big one that has the biggest effect, really, and that is post anxiety. We're thinking about what we should have done, and we only want to get out of there, and everything that's in there. And the last one, of course, is verbal tension. So verbal tension by 2. You have verbal anxiety by 3, anticipatory in the moment and post, and you have verbal tension by 2. The first point of contact is in the mind. Tension of the mind is transferred to tension in the body in a split second, because the body is the servant of the mind. People get that mixed up. They think that the mind is the servant of the body. That doesn't apply to stuttering. Our mind knows everything about our verbal communication. And that's what I had to break down to welcome it in. And as you said, and it was a powerful statement, instead of fighting it, welcome it in and say, hello, you're part of me. How are we going to work this out? Have a conversation with yourself. And you also made a fantastic contribution as well. We need to know and understand our verbal cues. You call them verbal cue cards. If you understand that, you know how you're feeling from the inside out. We're influenced by the outside world, but all of the Stuttering comes through us. It comes to us, but it comes through us. And, that was a powerful thing. And regarding interviews and stuff like that in college and whatever relationships, I would tell people, prepare well to perform well. Don't prepare well. Don't expect a good performance. And the other one, of course, is to contact people who are out there. There's thousands of people out there who have a perfectly good quality of life because they worked on it. And those people have walked the walk with the pain and the trauma and the suffering of getting there. They know what the walk is like. They have done it. You cannot expect a professional to understand that. Cannot emotionally that they can't understand it. I'd have the height of respect. My mum had 3 strokes, and it was speech and language pathologists who brought back her speech 3 times. So I have massive respect. And the other one, it doesn't matter how old you are, about yourself and about your stuttering. Learn more to apply more. Simple. And we all learn from each other. Michael O'Shea.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Do we have any closing comments? Because I just want to thank Clara for spending her hour so graciously with our group. So do we have any closing statements or anything that we like to say? Or would you like to close it out, Clara? Oh, Vishna.
Yes, I would like to say to Claire, thank you for this presentation, and that I'm very happy that speech therapists are including these parts into the therapy, because when I was in speech therapy, and that was a long, long time ago, there wasn't any of this. We just focused on the speech, but stuttering is so much more than just blockages and speech. It's everything that goes on inside a person. So I'm very happy to see that some parts of psychotherapy are included in speech therapy today. So thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Michael
And thank you,
O'Shea.
everyone.
I'll keep
Michael,
this.
please.
I'll keep this short, Clara. I'm around a long time. You are a breath of fresh air, Michael O'Shea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you, Clara, and thank you for the opportunity to actually take this so that we can show the importance of what you do to the group. And I just want to thank you so much. Thank you.
Clara,
This
if you
is-
could,
Yes, please, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
if you could share that Arnie et al. Research, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I will, because I'm unable to share it in the chat as it stands right now, I will send it to the group, include it, and a little synopsis above it, so that way it intrigues everyone who's interested in it.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Bye for now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.